Now, what if I told you that water fasting isn't just about weight loss, detoxing, or even healing your body, but about completely transforming your mind, your emotions, and your connection to yourself? For the past 18 months, my best friend Jen has been water fasting in a way that most people never even consider. What started as a simple, let's get a little bit healthier challenge, turned into one of the most profound spiritual awakenings of her life. Through water fasting, Jen uncovered deep-rooted patterns she'd never seen before and used it to tap into a sacred space of intuition, clarity, and self-trust. Today, Jen is here to share how fasting became her most powerful tool, not just for healing, but for transformation, consciousness, and a deeper connection to her inner guidance. Let's dive in to this very juicy conversation. Hello, love. Thank you so much for joining me today and having a little chat. Where are you coming from?
I'm coming from Sydney. I've come back down under to visit my 96-year-old mum.
Wowza. She's been water fasting.
One would think so. Yeah. Well, I think that's longevity, I'm sure, is actually one of the benefits. So,
yeah, definitely. Absolutely it is. All right. So on that note, you've obviously been water fasting too. So to lay some context for the audience, what's your experience with fasting? When was your first fast? And how many water fasts have you done since then? And like, what's the general length of time that you fast?
Okay, right. So I started my water fast journey 18 months ago, actually, in September, 18 months ago. Yeah. So it was, well, I'd seen the benefits that you and Jody had. And then I thought I was going into a sacred container. I was working with a coaching for my speaking, and I wanted to get myself to the purest version, unadulterated version that I could be for that container. So as part of that, I thought, I'm going to give this a go. And so ever since I did the first one, it's now become part of part of my regular maintenance program, right? So that means that I do it at least every quarter, right? And there are times where I pull it in for reason specific. So like I did one in December to clean up my palate and to cancel out the cravings, because I'd been away with family and I'd had 2 months of doing, I normally eat quite cleanly, but with my family, I was having beers every afternoon.
To be about families. It's always tough. Old habits.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of those sorts of things happened. And so I just wanted to clean everything up. I wanted to detox, reset, but particularly cancel my cravings, and cleanse my palate so that when I went into Christmas, I didn't gorge myself and eat all the shitty stuff. Am I allowed to say that?
You're allowed to say that if you like. You can say shitty all you like.
Well, that's right. So yeah, so sometimes it's specific. The other times where I'll do an impromptu water fast is when I feel like I'm losing connection with myself, because one of the major things I use water fasting for, besides all the science stuff and the medical stuff and the well-being and clarity and all of that, is that it kind of hardwires, helps me remember my hardwiring of my connection with myself and my body. And I have developed a really good relationship with my intuition and my body, and they tell me and give me lots of directions and things like that. So if I've just gone, like I went through a really difficult time with one of my best friends, and as a result, to help me process that and go through that, I actually went into a water fast, because for me, when I water fast, I kind of go into this real immersive state, and it's all about me. So it's all about my time for introspection. And I find that I do a lot of release work when I'm water fasting, because I have that stillness, and as all the noise drops away, you can process your own stuff much faster. So yeah, so in 18 months I'm about to start my 9th one when I'm doing one late next week.
Well done. And what's the general length of time that you fast for?
For me, what's interesting, the first few fasts I did, particularly the first one, I thought it was going to be really hard, and it wasn't. I couldn't believe it. The biggest surprise to me was I was never hungry. Work that out. I never got one hunger pain, right? And I very rarely do, right? I think I got some hunger pains on my last one because the last one I did was, I was kind of a bit half-assed about it. Like my body tells me when it wants one. And I kind of wasn't committed mentally, which kind of goes to how important the prep is. And I kind of just jumped into it. And so, yeah, I had a few little cravings, but they were more mental cravings than real hunger pains. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I thought I would struggle doing 3. And I must admit, day 1 was a bit of a shell shock, but it was a lot of detoxing.
Yeah, that's the thing on a first fast, isn't it? Is you're going to detox if you've never done it. But, you know, if you haven't detoxed for some time or you've never fasted for some time, it's also, I think it's the detox, but it's also your body is just not used to being in that fasted state because we just feed it constantly. Even though it's a natural state for the body to be in a fasted state, it's just forgotten how to do that. So we have to sort of remember that aspect of fasting as well. Yeah.
Yeah, my body went, well, actually, it was more my mind. My body was fine with it. My mind went into freak out mode, and it was like, oh, what am I going to eat now? Nothing. Water.
Water.
It doesn't sound too good. I'm not happy with that. So, you know, that whole conversation of that. But surprisingly, you know, and I didn't have my understanding of my supplements and the electrolytes and the need for extra salt. And you gave me that little chart that is that self-diagnostic thing, you know, where there's, you know, if you've got cramps or if you've got headaches or if you've got something else, and there's 3 different responses to 3 different things. That, whatever that magic little chart was, that fixed me up. And then I was fine. So I was going to do a 3 and I ended up doing 5.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that was on my first one. So was really happy with that. But usually they're 3 or 4. And, you know, the last one I did before Christmas, you know how I said I kind of jumped into it quickly. I only did like 2.5, but it was perfect. It was perfect for what I needed. So I don't judge myself on it. I just listen to my body and it will tell me. I don't listen to this guy.
That's it. Listen to the heart. It's yeah, and I think that's the whole concept of freedom fasters, is that you listen to your intuition. Your body's going to tell you what it needs, whether it needs to fast or it doesn't need to fast, or it needs to fast next week, it needs to fast after Christmas, or how long it needs to go for. So it's going to tell you those things when you tune in. And I think that's the really cool thing about fasting, is that you learn how to tune in again into the body, because we just don't do that anymore. We rely on doctors and the medical system a lot of the time. We sort of outsource our health and our wellness instead of just tuning in into the innate abilities of, you know, and the healing abilities of our body, which is just so cool to reignite that. So cast your mind back to your first fast. Were you feeling really fearful, or were you skeptical at all on your first fast, do you think?
I was more scared about the enema that I was going to do than the fast.
Which you never did. Which you don't have to do, mind you. You don't have to do an enema. Sometimes you can choose to do one, though, if you want to clean out.
I know. But you know me, I wanted to do the full experience, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? In the end, I didn't do the enema, because what I realized, so I'll go back to the original question, just to finish up on this though. But what I realize now is that when you do the 2 days of just pure fruit and veggies, and then you do 2 days of juicing, that is a natural enema. That pretty much purges your whole body and cleans your system out by the time you're onto water. Yeah. So I notice, you know, I notice when I'm doing one for a detox reason, then I'm a purist on those first 4 days, right? Yeah. But if the detox aspect and it's more around a reset or a reharmonization, which is what I use water fasting for largely, then, you know, sometimes I will only do 2 to 3 days or something or other, and they're kind of blended. Do you know what I mean? They're juice and fruits kind of things. Yeah. But yeah, I really noticed how important those 2 days of juicing was in terms of starting with an empty gut, you know? Yeah. That really helped me.
Yeah.
But going back to the fear, it was, no, I didn't. Do you know why? I think this is a really important thing. And I must admit, when I knew I was going to do this interview, I started to reflect on my experience, and I started writing down all the benefits, because I can remember after that first water fast, I wrote 16 benefits, and I was just thinking, okay, what were they? And then I got to about 21 recently. But one of the reasons, oh God, I was going to say, how about that? I need a water fast because I've just lost my train of thought, and clarity is
Clarity back. Come on.
get the clarity back and all that sort of stuff. But the thread is there, it's dangling in the wind. It's gone.
No, that's okay. So
I'll
maybe
come back.
grab that list off you, and I'll make another video about your benefits of water fasting, because I would love to make a video about that. So when I do that, I shall link to it up here, and you can check that out. But yeah, that's really cool. So when you're going through your fast, how do you find that you handle this really tough mental challenges and the moments that come up? Maybe it's due to hunger, or do you get bored when you don't eat? Is there an element of that goes on that you have to work through?
Yeah, it was a real expose, that first fast. I think the thing that I noticed the most was, physically, I didn't find it too hard. Boredom came into it, definitely.
Yeah.
But that was linked to the fact that I realized water fasting has changed my whole relationship with food. The first thing I realized is that when I think I'm hungry, I'm actually not. I'm thirsty.
Yes.
So my rule of thumb now, when I'm out of water fasting, is that if I think I'm hungry, I go and drink a glass of water first. Or, I don't gulp it. I mean, I just sip on a glass of water. And most of the time that quells my hunger pains, right? Because that's another way that your body is asking for, hydration.
Yeah.
Tough times. Yeah. So for me, what I realized was that my mind was using food as a distraction and as a form of procrastination, right? And so, and it was also using it for entertainment, right? Yes. So hence
totally
the
relate
thing
to
when
that myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I found that I was, when I was in avoidance mode or procrastination mode, then I would spice up my life experience through food.
Yes.
And what I found is I didn't get hungry, but what I got was that my mind would take me back to the fridge all the time. I find myself in front of the fridge so many times going, what am I going to eat? And I was thinking, but I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
Why do I need to eat? And so it was really interesting. I just sat back and observed what my mind was doing. And then I just realized that food was a surrogate for so many different things for me. And, it was at a time where I was throwing myself into, restarting my career as speaking and writing a book. And every time I went to sit down to write a book, I'd go and eat instead. And that was when I realized, holy shit, food is a major source of procrastination for me.
It's procrastination now.
Exactly. And, and how funny is that? Like, the book I'm writing is The Power of Procrastination and the 7 messages it has for us. So I was pissing myself laughing, watching all of this, carry on. So for me, it wasn't the physical challenges. Apart from, I must admit, I got gnarly headaches on the first day, but, once I got my salt levels and my magnesium and my vitamin B up, and I must admit, what I found I need is I get some miso paste, and I have a little miso lollipop throughout the day, kind of thing. And that gives me all the salt and the ionization, and I make sure I have more hydrolytes. So, electrolytes, I pump more electrolytes in it. Once I understood that, all of that went. The food cravings never showed up. And it was just my mind, which was great to observe. And so it doesn't have that power most of the time now, except for when I know I need a water fast. All fallen into bad habits.
I think that's it, isn't it? The most surprising emotion that I've had is that food was entertainment. And I actually had no idea that I used food to entertain myself. So if I got bored, then I would just go to the fridge and get something, and that would just tide me over for the next until I got bored again. So it was just really interesting. I think that was one of the most surprising emotions that I've ever had with fasting. I guess when you take food away, then suddenly it's raw and real, isn't it? Like that with the water fasting, is that there's nothing to distract you anymore. There's no meal times. A day seems really long at times because there's no meal times to interject with it. And it really does show up some of those food emotions, like you were saying, and food cravings, that how we've used food as, to depend on type thing for different things emotionally. So beyond the weight loss, what changes did you notice in your body during a water fast?
Yeah, well, I didn't really do it for weight loss because, I don't really, my age, I'm looking for healthy aging, so I want a bit of extra softness around me. But what did I notice? Well, initially I felt really drained and tired. That was interesting. But what I realized is that I think that's because when I go into a water fast, I want to do an immersive experience, which is release work, reflection, deep reflection, and, kind of more of a spiritual edge as well, trying to understand more about my truth and sense of purpose and connect with the oneness and stuff like that. Well, actually, maybe that's what the mind's trying to tell me, is that it dumbed down. It's kind of interesting. I think this is the message. I get the message now. Thank you.
You got it now.
It's that because each time it happens, it's when I'm thinking forward.
Yes.
It's what it's really interesting is that I'm thinking, as I'm talking, I'm also thinking about what I'm going to say next. And so what I've realized is that a water fast for me is a real time of cocooning. And so it gets me very present in the right here and the right now. And so coming back to this fear aspect, which was the first cutout, was that I had trust. I had trust in you and what I'd seen you do.
Yes.
And I trusted the program that you had built, and then I trusted me, and the trust in me grew more and more and more. But I think the cocooning and the forcing to be present and not think about, what's going to happen out there was really, really good. And I think that's a really, because what you do is you deal with all the stuff that's coming up in your present moment and is distracting you. And I think that's why you end up with greater clarity. I mean, obviously the scientific factors around it, but the fact that you are introspective for long days, and I get more sleep. I also get more sleep because I am a tad bored, right?
Yeah.
So instead of sitting in front of and binging on Netflix, I go and do what my body wants, which is go and have, pre-midnight hours, which are so therapeutic for you. And all of those things the body knows what it wants. So it's forcing me, encouraging me, forcing me initially because I don't know. And I have the tendency to go off and do other stuff that's not, in my best interest for my health and well-being. And then it's encouraging me and showing me and demonstrating to me to be still and present and to not get ahead, which is what I was doing when we were chatting earlier. So thank you. I got the message.
Good reminder.
Trust my intuition, be in the present.
So what lasting effects do you feel that you've seen from water fasting, like physically, mentally, and emotionally? What sort of stayed with you after your fasts?
I think it's the knowingness, knowing that none of those are a permanent. That it's just like, when the sun is shining and we have cloud cover and people say, oh, the sun's not shining. The sun never stops shining. So you just get cloud cover. So when I feel that I'm disconnected or I don't have clarity, it's just a temporary thing, and this too shall pass, right? So for me, I think it's more the psychological aspects and a knowingness around who I am and what I am. And when I muddy the waters and toxify my body, or when I'm, just so mentally spent because I'm trying to do too much and get ahead of myself, water fasting, I now know that water fasting can recalibrate all of that in a nanosecond. And I haven't done just one day, but I'm sure if I just did one day, I could switch back to that state, because that's my true authentic state,
Yeah, I agree. I think one day even of fasting does do that to you. I don't know. As soon as I think about doing a water fast and I start, it's almost like bang, I'm straight back into my body. I'm myself again. And it's just like all the old stuff of binge eating and this, that, and the other, just gone, completely gone. It's just wiped. Amazing. Yeah.
And I think for me, water fasting has kind of become a sacred experience, and it's real special introspection time. I've really strengthened lots of relationships with my intuition, my love for self. I come away, you were talking about what emotion did you feel? And love's not an emotion, it's a state of being. And so I felt that I can anchor myself and stay in that place more easily when the onslaught of everything that's fear-based outside of us, particularly at the moment with everything that's happening in the world. I find that the water fasting is so essential to keep that connection open and clear, and that sense of knowingness of who I am and what I'm not, which is all the shit that's bouncing around in the universe right now. So that is just absolutely lasting, and the knowingness, I can't stress it more. The knowingness is just really incredible.
Yeah, that's great. And do you feel water fasting has helped you become more resilient in other areas of your life as well, besides just fasting?
Oh, hell yeah. It's a whole body experience. It's a whole, see, this is, I think, part of our problem is that we treat ourselves as a one-dimensional being because we're so entrapped in our minds.
Yeah.
And when you go on a water fast, you see how the mind is like, it's like being trapped in the cell block of your mind. It's like, no, I gotta eat. I'm not hungry, but I've gotta eat. It's crazy, and it rattles the cage and you go fucking loco at times, momentarily, until you realize, wow, this is just a thing that's playing out of my mind,
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it's also realizing that my body is such an intelligent being in itself. My heart, which is, the source of my energy, and it's part of what harmonizes me. All these things, when we stop jamming shit down our throats and into our head, because we're feeding ourselves junk thoughts as well. I feel like we're not just dealing with food, we're dealing with what we're using food to fix, which addresses the mental stuff. But the mind can't just recalibrate the mind. We need our other two intelligence centers, our heart and our intuition. And so I just feel like it really starts to hardwire those connections in. And we go from a one-dimensional person that, can get trapped in the steely cage of their mind, to a multi-dimensional being that uses their intuition and their heart space.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important aspect and outcome of it.
Yeah, definitely. So what would you say to someone who hasn't fasted before and they're feeling a bit terrified of giving up food for a couple of days? What tips do you have for them? What would you say to them?
Trust. I think it's the first thing. It's the first thing in it. Well, courage, actually, I think is the first thing.
You're going to get a dose of courage first.
Yeah. Come on. What have you got to lose? A few kilos?
Couple of pounds, some brain fog.
Some brain fog, some frog. some cravings, you can lose them, you can lose the mind chatter, you can lose your inner critic and go piss off in the corner, pardon me. You can get introduced to your inner coach. They're a much better ally, you know. So yeah, just give it a go. And I think trust is really important. Trust is the basis of everything, and trust in yourself. You will, sometimes it's confronting because of what comes up and you've got nowhere to hide.
Yes.
But that's good. That's what life is trying to get us to front all our stuff. The vibe inside matters, and we keep distracting ourselves with all this external stuff. And so this is a really important process. So step into your courage zone, trust the process, trust your program, trust your guidance, trust the community that is growing around you. And as a result, your own trust will grow. And then that exponentially increases your resilience in every area of your life.
Yeah.
And plus it blows the lid on the relationship with your food. Yeah. And that's kind of humbling.
That's really nice. Nice little bonus you never expect from fasting at all.
Well, I think people don't realize that they're in relationship with everything, and being in relationship with yourself is one of the biggest relationships you have. We think it's being in relationship with somebody else, but it's being in relationship with ourselves, and then being in relationship with food and what we put into our body and what we feed ourselves mentally is really important.
Yep.
So do it. Yep. Just do it. Nike, tick.
Well, my love, that is sage advice. And not only are you a water faster, you're also a coach and a speaker and an author, all about this stuff, not about water fasting necessarily, but all the stuff we've been talking about today, which is living from your heart and living authentically, speaking your truth. And so if anyone would love to reach out to you and find out more about your work and get in touch with you, and they're connected with you in this little chat of ours, how can they get hold of you?
Oh, I think you can go on to jennylincoln.com, and can you put that link in your comments?
Do that for you. That'll be linked in the description as well as on the video here.
Yeah, or jump onto LinkedIn. I'm more active on LinkedIn, you know, so LinkedIn or my website would be fantastic. But thank you for that. That's very, very sweet of you too.
Very welcome. Thank you for joining us today, sharing your wisdom about water fasting. And it's really nice to, you know, often talk about the health benefits of water fasting, but it really is nice to dive into the consciousness aspect of water fasting. And, you know, we've been best friends and known each other for 20 years. And that's how we first connected, was through consciousness work. Yep. And, you know, we've maintained that relationship through the entire time of talking about consciousness. So it's really nice to get together with you and to be able to talk about that a little bit more and dive in a bit more in relation to water fasting, because I think it really is an amazing tool for getting back to your authentic self. I find everything that you've talked about today, I can 100% relate to and concur with, because that's exactly how I feel when I water fast as well. So if that's a thing for you, and you're looking to really not only just, you know, leave behind the head stories and the cravings and the food attachments and the dependency on food for things, and sometimes those don't even show up until you're water fasting and you start to see that connection, then water fasting is an amazing way to do that. Even if you just do a day or two, it doesn't have to be massively long. Just every now and then you feel it and you go, yeah, I need to reconnect and come back. I've been really busy. All my energy is going out to the world and everybody else in it. And I need to come back into here. And I think it's a really nice way to do that, as you've said. So,
oh, absolutely. It's certainly made my health and well-being, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, but it's such an important part of my just day-to-day maintenance and ongoing. So it's thank you for bringing it into the space of awareness of myself, your friends, and whoever else needs to get into this. It really does change your whole sense of being. So go do it.
Go do it. That's our advice.
Get on the water fasting train. Woohoo!
Thank you, my love.
Okay, thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye.